So while we're waiting, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. But why don't we get our speakers to introduce themselves? Julia, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. Put me on the spot here.
Oh.
Well, I run a writing agency, Express Writers. It's kind of my full-time thing that I do every day. We just celebrated our 9th year anniversary actually this week and crossed 20,000 projects completed. So that was really exciting. I have about 90 people on my team. It's all 9 years, 90 people. And the other business that I run that also takes up a bit of my time is called The Content Hacker. And I educate marketers in content. That's what I do, teach workshops, courses over at The Content Hacker.
Great. Liraz?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. Well, I've been doing SEO, international SEO for 12 years now. I'm Israel-based and doing international SEO only with the B2B brands and B2C as well. And my last role was at Outbrain. I was director of SEO and content, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Shelley?
Good afternoon. I'm Shelley. I was the founder of Shell Shock. We do content production. I've got quite a diverse background. I actually came from offline, so I've got over 20 years of creative business and marketing experience, and then in that 10 years digital. So for 10 years I've been running Shell Shock. We do award-winning content, and very recently I'm now the assistant editor at Search Engine Journal as well.
You three are made for this. You could just do 5 hours of content by yourself.
I live for content.
I know, we just have a lot of time in the day. So for our listeners, viewers, definitely reach out on Twitter, use the hashtag 5 hours of content. Stay tuned for this. It's amazing. We have more coming up. Julia, do you want to kick us off here?
Sure, absolutely. So I think I'll go ahead and share. I saw some people in the comments that I know. Yay. Let's see. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it showing full screen correctly?
It's not, no.
Let's see. I think I have to do this slideshow. Okay, there we go. Is that working for you guys?
Yeah.
Does everything look good on your end, Casie?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. All right, let's get into this. So my talk today for you guys is called How to Create Content That Gets Found in Google and Build Your Brand. When Semrush asked me to talk, we were in the middle of the lockdown. I know we still are. The pandemic, coronavirus has affected all of us, but this was happening real time. So I was doing data research on searches in Google as the pandemic was affecting us. So I wanted to write a talk where we have real world tips that really work for building your brand through content. So this works despite the times, and that was my focus. So you already heard a little bit about me. I think a lot of you watching know who I am, which is really exciting. Thank you all for tuning in. But the main things I do is I run Express Writers and Content Hacker. So Express Writers is my writing agency, and Content Hacker is where I teach content. Okay, so the first thing here, the first question, did you know that this is happening in search right now? So when coronavirus hit the globe in 2020, the amount of Google searches actually went from 3.5 billion searches per day to over 6 billion per day. And this happened in a matter of mere weeks. And like the nerd I am, I was in World Odometers tracking this live just to see for myself. And I watched the counter go up every day. And oftentimes it was going to 6.5 billion searches every single day. So really crazy. Now, before the lockdown hit, we were at 3.5 billion. And currently it's almost June. We're still looking at 6 billion searches every single day. So in the middle of the pandemic, that should say during pandemic instead of post-pandemic, but that number 6.4, that was happening every single day in May, and it's still May. So we're kind of curving down. It looks more like 6 billion searches, but these are the numbers. So Google search has really exploded. And what this means, this is such an opportunity for those of us that are marketing our business, that are creating content to get found in search. So if your brand is not present in search, you're missing out. But the good news is, if you're not doing it yet, there's no time like the present to start creating this kind of content that really grows and builds your traffic. And in the last 9 years, I've managed to build 5 brands completely through content. We don't do ads. This is how we grow our brands. And we had one of our highest traffic months actually during the pandemic. So I wanted to create teaching a talk that kind of was pandemic proof, that would give you evergreen strategies on how to really rock it with your brand despite the times and get those prospects. So before the lockdown, the pandemic hit us, I think all of us have been affected by this. The statistics were already in favor of SEO and content as a primary marketing avenue for this year. But now the stats are really in favor of doing content that gets found in search. And I'll give you a little bit more on why this is so important. So back in 2016, the ROA, which is return on ad spend, was almost 12 times. That's how much you could get back on investing in a Facebook ad campaign. But today, this looks as small as almost 0.5%. Now, ad costs have really fluctuated, of course, because of the pandemic, but this is still an average. That statistic is recent. So, and I have to add to that, whenever you're earning these prospects through search, you're getting very qualified leads. People are so much more willing to spend money with you and your brand whenever they see that you've earned that position in search. So there's a lot more trust that you can actually build instead of just putting money into an ad campaign that may not bring the best type of lead your way. So this is absolutely worth doing. Now, the truth is there's really nothing magic about building this type of content. It really takes that strategic, consistent approach to see success and win. So there's no overnight hack here. There's no overnight approach. This is long term. So you need to settle in and be ready for that approach. But I can promise the investment is totally worth it, because we had our highest traffic month during a month when so many other businesses were feeling that pain from pandemic affecting their traffic. So I wanted to start out by showing you guys the right fundamentals. This is so important. And a lot of these things can seem simple, and maybe you already have them on lockdown. If so, great job. The majority of students and clients that we work with, this is often missing, these few but very important factors. So the first one, if you build your site in WordPress, you really can't go wrong. This is one of the best CMS site platforms out there, especially if you want to build an SEO-friendly site. Then you really need to have that SSL security certificate installed. And on top of that, your site speed is critical. And none of these optimization things I actually do. My WordPress web developer does all of them. So I would highly recommend, if you don't have that person, definitely look for them. There's really good hourly ones per project. Really easy to find a good WordPress developer. And you need someone that is going to know SEO, because then they will know how to put all these factors into place. So on top of those technical things like site security, site speed, you really want well-placed call to actions. So you don't want to confuse your visitors. You really want a clear website. And I think some of these things were said in the prior session. It's really just a lot of common sense thinking here. You want your site to flow. And then on top of that, you really need cohesive branding. You don't want any heavy elements weighing down the site. And avoid pop-ups as much as you can. Exit intent are much better. If you do want to try them, exit intent are so much better than just putting a pop-up right in the face of your visitor. So you want some time to pass. You don't really want to conflict their focus. You want them to be able to look at your site without that interruption. And that matters to rankings. Okay, so Here is a simple 11-step website content strategy. I wanted to just kind of create a numbered guide. So in the next screen, you'll see all 11 steps, and then we will go into each one of them. So on a typical year, we work with over 500 businesses a year. And what we find out is that more than half of these, they don't have these fundamentals right. And I don't know why my designer put an angry face. That's not the expression we usually have. We're a little bit more patient. But this happens so often that the fundamentals are missed. But the good news is once these fundamentals are fixed, which often comes down to the technicalities of your website, your increase in traffic, prospects, knocking on your virtual door can go up by 600, 700%. This actually happened for someone who I mentored here in Austin, Texas for 9 years. Her website, she wasn't seeing results. And then 3 months after putting these fundamentals into place, she saw a 600% increase in her web traffic. And that number is actually still increasing. So pretty crazy how well this works. But here are your 11 steps. So grab a screenshot of the slide. If you're seeing it, we will show it again at the very end. But here are each of these steps. So these are kind of basic, they're fundamental, but the main ones we're going to go into in a lot of detail is step number 3 and 4, because those, the other ones you can delegate a little bit more easily, but number 3 and 4, you should always oversee. So never completely delegate that. You can delegate parts of it, but that should be something that you oversee. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about each step. So the first one, this is something I don't touch for any of our sites. Luckily, our WordPress site developer knows how to do this, so it makes my life a little bit easier. But this is really important. You need to submit a sitemap and add schema markup. So if you haven't done that, that could be holding you back from really accelerating in those rankings. So all of these factors really play in. You want all of them to happen to see your site really work in rankings. The second one that you want to focus on, make sure you have this just checked, your box checked on this. Make sure your site does not have any duplicate content. And this is a really simple step, right? Like, I think none of us want duplicate content happening, but Semrush actually did a study on this. The amount of duplicate content on the web is ridiculous. There is like tons of pages, hundreds of thousands. So what can happen is this can totally happen by accident. If you published a site page and maybe you didn't know it was published and then you went to publish it somewhere else. So there's simple tools like this one where you can use just to check, because you really don't want that happening. You want fully original content all over your site. And then number 3, you want to know and you need to be able to pick the right keywords to rank for. This is super important. So you want to use a tool like Semrush. This will help you find those long tail, low competition keywords. And then number 4, remember to consistently publish quality content. And this is really critical. This one is important. So you won't be ranked by Google overnight. It really takes a few months to see those results happen. And then number 5, you want to promote the content you publish. So think about staying active on social media. It's really easy to promote your content whenever it's amazing. So that's the factor that you want to focus on in number 4. If you have that high quality content happening, it's really easy to talk about it. And then you can send your subscribers emails leading to your content. Excuse me. Okay, so number 6, earn backlinks. Now, this is something that I wouldn't stress to put in front of, everything that you do. This is more a process of earning them instead of doing them. That's why I wrote earn there. So you want to think of this as a byproduct. If you're doing amazing content, the byproduct of that is that you will earn backlinks. People will notice it and they will link to it. And then number 7, you want to think of your site like an outsider. So imagine you're that visitor and you're going over your website for the first time. What's your first impression? Is it clear? Is it compelling? And then number 8, use quality links in your content. So these are citations. You want to use internal links, send people back to your site, related content on your site, and then think about quoting to outside high quality sources. And that will help represent you as that authority in your niche. Okay, so the last 3 here, make sure your site is mobile friendly. I think all of us know that most searches actually happen on mobile. So think about hiring someone to help you achieve that. And then number 10, think about looking at what your competitors are doing. The opportunity here is that if your competitor is a huge brand with a ton of customers, they might be overlooking those low-hanging keywords that you could potentially compete for. So think about long tail keywords with low competition numbers. That's really critical. And then number 11, this especially applies to local businesses. So you want to create this account on Google My Business and then make sure you keep it updated. Okay, so that is our 11-step guide. And then I wanted to spend a few more minutes on this one. So it's really important to consistently publish amazing content. And it's also critical to remember that rankings do not happen overnight. It really takes a few months. So what is quality content? It's a mix. Think of this as all of the content coming out from your brand. So you really want high quality content coming out at all times. Make sure that it's mapped to a clear goal. And then be consistent. Think about publishing a blog every single week. And lead magnets are a great way to grow your list. And then once you have that email list growing, you can kind of retarget them with your offers. And that's a great way to see ROI. Okay, so I wanted to show you what we do with just one piece of high quality content. So if you think of this amazing content that you want to produce around a keyword, think of it almost like an engine that will grow your entire brand. And what this looks like. So here's one piece of amazing content and what we did with it. So on the left, you have this 3,000 word blog. This is the piece that we're putting on our site. It's not gated. You can read it right away. It's 3,000 words, tons of info. Really informative, valuable piece of content for our prospects. This is one of their pain points. Sometimes their content doesn't rank. They don't know what to do. Then we turned that into a checklist, which became a lead magnet. We created a landing page that just grabs their email and then sends them this lead magnet. And then we put CTAs in the blog that encourage people to download this lead magnet. And it's really easy to get people on your list this way. You're almost earning them because if you're giving them a shorter format to read, and then you're still giving them tons of value, the chances of them signing up are so high. So this is a really great way to build your list.
Hey, Julia, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that there's some good questions coming in, and I want to make sure we're able to get those answered. Is there anything you want to wrap up with specifically?
That is good timing. Oh no, time was slipping by. So this is the last slide. You want me to just run through it like 30 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the last point here, if you're asking yourself, why make this investment? Because it's a lot of work to create content like that. In 9 years, we've never missed 1 week of publishing. This is what happened. Over the lockdown month, May, our user count shot up past 100,000 visitors a month. And that hasn't happened before. So this is why the time investment in creating content is so worth it, because your brand will get more traffic. You will see results. And that can happen even during a month where everything is shut down. So that is some inspiration, hopefully, for your journey. And that's a wrap.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, those numbers are unbelievable. In fact, someone asked, where did you get those statistics from around like the Google and COVID updates?
Yeah, so I was basically tracking those myself. Should I show my face now, or do we want to keep looking at my slides?
Whatever you want to do, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, good. Well, we had another question too, and I'm going to defer to Shelley to start us off here. 11 steps is a lot of steps, right? And, where do you guys think that it makes sense to start? So Shelley, where would you really put the emphasis on when thinking about how do I build a content strategy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Julia, you had some really great points there. For me, when I'm doing a content strategy, the absolute underlying for everything is all about keywords. So I'm just going to expand a little bit more on obviously what Julia touched on there. But for me, 2 words, keywords, intent. And, you've got to be, if you haven't got the traffic coming through from search, so if you're not targeting the right keywords, then you're not going to get the traffic, so your content is never going to get found. So you've got to get that right sweet spot combination of what people are searching for, what's actually relevant to your brand, and also tying that into the user intent. So if you start with the keywords and you're looking for the right keyword volumes, and then actually go through the SERPs on each of those keywords, you can then get a really good feel for what people are actually searching for and what they actually want to read. So on some SERPs, you might see lots of listicles, some it might be a lot of how-tos and deep guides, others it might be a lot of videos. But I do a lot of content strategy work, and I always put a lot of emphasis. It's all about building out a keyword plan. Obviously, just coming back from that, I mean, I know I just need to say personas right. Everybody knows start with the personas first. But getting your keyword plan is the absolute foundation of the content strategy. And if you're not finding the right keywords, you're not going to get the right relevant traffic. But also understanding as well that when your traffic comes through from search, essentially that page becomes a landing page. So when people come through, you also need to consider, as well as what Julia touched on with the CTAs, is you really need to consider that when people come onto that page, where they're going to want to go to next. So this is where the user intent becomes very useful, because you can then start to understand what other questions they might have, and try to anticipate that on the page as they're reading down, so that you will then know where to lead them to next. Very important. You should always have a clear journey and a clear CTA of where you want your user to go to next.
Exactly. Yeah. If I may add about it, to talk about the query satisfaction as well. You got to make sure that you're writing the content that answers the question, that answers the query, and the user must be satisfied from the visit that they visit in your website. So use the proper formatting for that. Use a table of content. If it's a long article, make sure the user knows and they can skip and get to the right point of everything that answers in for them. Or make sure you highlight some headings or subheadings, bullet points. Make sure it's readable. Sometimes we write amazing piece of content, 3K words, and the user get lost with it and doesn't really know where to reach and how to understand this huge piece of content. So we want to make sure it's readable as well.
Yeah. Here's a question for y'all. How do you convince teams to create this high quality content? Because let's be honest, it's not cheap, right? And a lot of people still think that they could just throw out content and that's all they need. So Liraz, I'll stick with you here. When we're talking about high quality, how do you communicate that to clients or VPs or whatever that might be?
It's a good question. They need to look at their competitors. If they want to be in the same spot as their competitors and they're doing a good job and they are saying, but they're getting a tons of traffic and we're not. Well, that's because they're doing the right things, and you need to keep doing those as well. So this is the best example. This is what we're doing in competitor research as well, to understand and put everything on the table. Listen, guys, they're doing an amazing job with content, and this is how you need to compare yourself. There's a great report on Semrush for the content gap, and you can also see what are the things that you need to insert inside your web pages and what gives them traffic, and you're missing out. So I think that's the most thing that's convinced them. Okay. We're probably going to do it.
Is there anything else that Julia or Shelley you would add to that?
I was just going to say that producing content, really good content, is hard. It's something I've been doing for 10 years. And I, for a long time, have actually been in the really high-end digital PR campaign space. So producing a lot of interactive tools, calculators, ebooks, PDFs, long-form content, etc. And it's really difficult. You have to put a lot of resource. It's not actually difficult. You just need to put a lot of resource into it. And as you say, a lot of people, they don't want to pay for that to try and justify the spend into it. But I think essentially, anybody can produce really great content if you get a very good writer, and also somebody who actually can structure the article before it goes to the writer, preferably sort of an SEO combined with somebody who has content knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's a real key combination, and a massive amount of people really get that you can understand it from both perspectives. And if you can find somebody who can put the SEO strategy down with sort of the content view in mind to build the framework to create a brief from, then you're going to start to have some really powerful content.
Yeah. Julie, I'm going to throw this one back to you. So, the title included, pandemic proof, and obviously we're in this thing that's happening, right? One of the things that I saw happening when everything was sort of, starting up is you saw Google adjusting, right? You saw search results adjusting to current events. Have you had to do anything for clients specifically, or is anything you've told clients when I'm sure they've asked, what do we do right now?
Well, so we're in a unique place, my content agency. We're kind of in the place where people go to us after their strategy is figured out. At least that's like 80%. The other 20, we try to help them. But then in the end, we tell them to have that figured out first. So they usually come to us when they're ready to create content. And what we saw, especially April, we saw a lot of requests for COVID-19 related content. And my editorial team and our content manager, we kind of put our heads together for how to create really factual content, because that's one of our differentiation factors. As an agency, we don't just create content for content's sake. We create really good stuff. So we kind of came up with our own guidelines, like sources to avoid, sources to use, and then we just applied that to all of those orders we were getting to write on that topic. So that was kind of our focus. We don't really come in and strategize more like Liraz and Shelley might do, and even you, Casie. So it's more the content creation itself.
Yeah. Liraz, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, basically, I was following a lot of the trends and recent, discovered keywords, and track those all the time on a daily basis, sometimes even hourly when it was like a huge news outbreak. And then I basically discovered some topics that we can discuss about using content and that can generate the traffic easily and rank easily a bit, because no one is basically talking about those topics yet. So that allow us to act quickly and execute quicker, and then just put the content out there on the side, and then brought a huge quality traffic.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many answers, and I'm sorry to say we're out of time. You are all so fantastic. Where can people find you? Because I know that people have questions that maybe we didn't get to. So, Liraz, why don't you start?
I'm on every social platform, so you can reach me out at Twitter, our Liraz. I'm there. Here it is in the banner. You can see it as well.
Shelley?
Yeah, as you can see, the Shelley Walsh. My main channel is Twitter. I tend to be on there most of the time. So anybody has a question, just contact with me on there. It's the best channel to get me on.
Mm-hmm. And Julia?
I would say Twitter as well. I can kind of leave the next 30 minutes open. So if you guys have tweets, if you want to tweet me questions, if you have questions, you can turn those into tweets, and I'll be sure to keep Twitter open and I can reply to those, because I know this topic was in depth and I feel like I took too much time. But
no, you were great. Yes. And the hashtag 5 hours of content for our viewers. Be sure to use that, and our panelists will get back with you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to be adding Lee Oden. I know that there are people who, maybe you haven't been following along there.
Hello, Shelley. Hi,
Hi,
Julie.
Lee. How are you doing?
If you're just joining us for Lee's 30-minute session, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We're seeing people from all over the world. It's really awesome. While people are still joining, Lee, why don't you introduce yourself